Are you gonna run away? Are you gonna just stand there? Sit there? Hey guys, it's Maria. I'm here for another reading roundup. Jasper is also here for y'all. So, this will be August's reading roundup. I only read 3 books in August, and you'll learn why. One of them was a rather large book, so it took a while to digest, but we're going to start at the top. The first book that I finished in the month of August is The Castle of Otranto. I finished, it was a audio book, and it was actually really good. I thought that it was going to be a certain way. It's written by Horace Walpole, and he was an earl or count or duke or something like that, and he wrote this book in 1764, and it's widely considered the first Gothic novel. I have really been loving medievalism right now, and I actually heard this. I listened to the podcast Lore, which I'll link below, but they mentioned it on Lore when they talked about this book, and I've been really into medievalism and Gothic, all that good stuff, and I was like, why don't I read the original Gothic novel? So I got it through my Libby app, which I always love, and I read it there, and I was actually really impressed. I gave it a 4 out of 5. And the reason I gave it a 4 out of 5 was because there are definitely parts that are not as fleshed out as I would like. However, I can tell that the author was just like, oh, here are the parts I really want to focus on, and then we're just going to skip over these parts, and then I really want to focus on this. So I can't really blame. No, I can't fault him. I could have fleshed it out a lot more, and he just didn't. There is actually a really great YouTube video by the Gothic Bookshelf, and I'm gonna link it below in the description, that if you're more interested in, she does a really fabulous job about explaining it and going into more detail and why it's important or just really cool. So yeah, that was our first book. Our second book was the only physical book that we read this month, and it was off of my physical bookshelf, and it was Aesop's Fables. And I mean, this is kind of the classic. You've probably heard of them. Even if you don't know them, like The Goose That Laid the Golden Egg comes from Aesop's Fables. It was supposedly written by Aesop, who was a great fabulist in the 6th century BCE. I'm going to link another article below, and it's from the International Educational Philosophers, and the post is from UT Martin, University of Tennessee at Martin, and they go into a lot more detail and explain like the history of Aesop. He was a slave turned fabulist. There's rumor that he might not have actually existed, and this is just a collection of fables that was going around. I gave it 4 out of 5 because I couldn't really find fault with it, but it is very short, very fast read, which was nice for everything else I'm currently reading. I gave it 4 out of 5. And I really enjoy the English language as a whole. Like, I enjoy dissecting English language. Uh, one of my favorite classes in undergrad was history of the English language. And when it goes into like idioms and sayings and, you know, phrases that we use in everyday modern English, what is the context for that? What is the history of that? Why did we start saying these things? I really love those, and they're just like a favorite little tidbit that I always enjoy. And a lot of our modern, or several of our modern sayings and idioms come from Aesop's Fables. So it was a really enjoyable read, super fun. If you're looking for just like something to read every day, I think my favorite is, I think I marked them. Marked several. Let's see. No. Anyway. And then our last book for the month of August. Technically, I finished it on September 1st, but I was like, I'm counting it towards August because I read the majority of the book in August. And that's No More Tears, The Dark Secrets of Johnson & Johnson by Gardiner Harris. And this came out earlier this year, I believe. It just further confirms that corporations will always put profit over people, even if they are healthcare organizations. Johnson & Johnson's one of the largest medical companies in the world, and it's very well researched. Gardner Harris has, I guess, spent years researching this book, and it goes into minute detail, and it pulls up court transcripts, it pulls up internal memos from Johnson & Johnson. It goes over the entire lifespan of the company from inception to modern day. And like, I didn't even know what happened, but you can't buy regular Johnson & Johnson's baby powder anymore because it could give you ovarian cancer. Just because of what it is, and Johnson & Johnson knew that, and they still sold it to people. They had a drug that they knew was quote-unquote miracle grow for cancer, and they were giving it to cancer patients. The Risperdal medication, they were giving it to elder patients, and they were dying. They were giving it to young boys, and they were developing breast tissue and then lactating, and they covered it up and continuously covered shit up for years because they're like, well, you know, it just happens. That's the cost of doing business. Oh my god, it infuriates me so much. So I will be trying. It's hard because sometimes we don't know who produces the medicines that we buy. Like, I take a couple daily medications. I don't know who made them. Johnson & Johnson might have made them. But I don't know. I will be trying to distance myself from Johnson & Johnson products just because I don't like that. But again, it's very difficult. And Gardner Harris actually does a very good job in the book explaining how, like, the FDA has no real teeth, and how a lot of the FDA and other government groups rely on funding from private groups. And so, you know, why would you bite the hand that feeds you? Which comes from Aesop's Fables, I believe. I just could not believe that there were doctors that were allowing this stuff to happen and were benefiting from these medications that were not helping people, and they knew that they weren't helping people. Yeah, I gave the book 5 out of 5, if you can't tell. I think it really highlights how privatized healthcare in America only benefits the corporations and the private insurance companies. It drives me absolutely crazy. That's a whole big long rant for another time. The book also is very good about kind of explaining, yes, they have done all these terrible, bad things, and we should hold them accountable for this. But they have also put millions of dollars into like cancer research, into HIV medications, into, they've volunteered resources and money to people who need them. And so there's this it's really good of kind of pointing out like it is the monster that we have allowed it to be. So I really enjoyed it. It was like 700 pages long, so that's why it took me all month to get through it. But I think it's well worth it if you just have a casual book that you just want to put on audiobook on the way home. I listened to it on I listened to the audiobook. So, yeah. And those were all the books I read in August. There were only 3. So, hopefully I finish some more books. I'll give you a sneak peek of, hopefully, September. Currently reading The Once and Future King by T.H. White, which is surprisingly good. Better than I thought it would be. Surprising me more than I thought it would. And then my book club has picked The Rape of Nanking by Iris Chang for our September book to read. And I'm very looking forward to this one. I've had it in my physical a physical copy for years now, and I just haven't gotten around to reading it, so I'm looking forward to that. But I hope you guys had a good August, and I hope you have a great September. Bye, guys.